Welcome again, everybody, and thank you for joining our webinar on StableNet 7.0, What's New? My name is Dietmar Kneidl, Director of Sales Europe with Infosim, and I will be your moderator for today's event. Joining us for this webinar as well as our presenter is my colleague Mark Scheib. Mark is a developer and consultant with Infosim and has been with us for almost 2 years. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Dietmar.
Before I hand over to Mark, I just wanted today's audience to know that all of you are automatically muted, just to keep down the background noise. So for us to be able to see and answer your questions, please type them in the questions window at the bottom of the GoToWebinar application. We will be answering all of your questions either directly in the chat during our presentation or at the end of today's webinar in our Q&A session. Also, please take note that this event is being recorded and all of you will be notified via email tomorrow on how to access the recording. Okay, well, now I'd like to go ahead, turn things over to our presenter, Mark Scheib. Mark, you ready to take over?
Thank you, Dietmar. Again, welcome everybody to our webinar on what's new in StableNet version 7.0 Enterprise and Telco. As our CTO Mario Heuler states, this version is another big step forward towards the industrialization of modern network management. And as our agenda for today's webinar, we will at first look into the recommended infrastructure requirements on version 7.0, which will include the hardware, database, and software requirements. And I will also give you some additional recommendations. Afterwards, we will look into the new features and the enhancements we made. And as a final step, I will give you some hints on how to install or upgrade existing StableNet installations. So let's first start with the recommended infrastructure requirements. Important to note here is that we do not support the StableNet GUI on 32-bit systems anymore. So if you want to use the Java GUI, keep in mind that you need a 64-bit architecture now. But of course, the web portal is still available on 32-bit systems. For the server and the agent hardware, we recommend to use high availability, including power supplies and fan drives, and also to use teamed or paired network interfaces, which are connected to a high availability network infrastructure. Also, your disks should use a redundant hardware based on RAID controllers, and we recommend here to use a RAID 1 mirrored as best decision, or also RAID 5 block level stripping. The hardware requirements for the StableNet Enterprise did not change in general compared to the previous version 6.7, except for the amount of storage the GUI takes. So you can see here we now take 8 GB space instead of 2 GB before. This has the reason because we changed the GUI bootstrapping mechanism and the updating of the GUI. But I will look into this topic in more detail later on. And this is also the same for the StableNet Telco version. In here also no changes except for the 8 GB again on the GUI storage. We also still recommend to use as a free database software MySQL 5.6.14 or higher, especially for small installations, or if you are using or if you have a larger network. Then we recommend to use the commercial database of Oracle Enterprise 11G with partitioning. And for the telco, as this is normally used on larger networks. We only recommend or support the Oracle Enterprise database here. As the recommended software requirements, we still support Windows Server 2008 and 2012 for server and agent on Windows side, and on Linux side we support Red Hat Linux on version 6.6 or above and version 7.0 above, or Ubuntu with a version of 14.04. So keep in mind that for server and agent you are using server operating systems. For the GUI you can use Windows 7 or Windows 8 and 8.1, or again Red Hat Linux with a version of 6.6 and above, or Ubuntu, or for our Apple users also we support Mac GUI. And as we also did some major changes to the web portal, we now increased the versions for the supported web browser. So in here we now need a Google Chrome in version 40 or above, Firefox version 36 or above, and Internet Explorer version 10 and above. And this is also the same for the StableNet telco version, except for the Linux side. In here we only support Red Hat Linux anymore. So again here use Red Hat Linux 6.6 or above or 7.0 above for server and agent. And for the GUI you can use Red Hat Linux 6.6 and above. As some other recommendations, we need to have an NTP synchronization on the server and StableNet agent, and also on all managed devices to ensure a correct analysis of messages from those systems. And of course, you should not use DHCP for your server, agent, and database, as we need a fixed connection between those components. Also, you should avoid to have virus scanners scanning your StableNet directories, as this may impact the performance of the installation. And this is also the same for intrusion detection or firewall systems. The StableNet server and the GUI can also run, or they are supported in a virtualized environment. So if you make sure to meet the requested requirements regarding the CPU and the other hardware requirements, then you can use those both components in a virtualization environment, but the StableNet agent is officially not supported in virtual environment. So in here, make sure to use physical hardware, as you may face some timing and resource constraints in virtual environment. So let's go ahead and look into the new features of version 7.0. One of the most important features, especially for us, is the introduction of new server technology and communication. This isn't directly visible to users, of course, as it is in the background. The StableNet server itself is now upgraded to a newer application server called Wildfly 8.2, and this allows us to introduce new features like, for example, web service support, including REST or SOAP. This server also has an improved resource management, and this of course results in way better performance when using StableNet on large installations. Also, the communication between the server and the GUI is now fully encrypted using HTTPS, or more exactly it's based on SSL. And this also has the advantage that we only need one port to communicate between those two components. So instead of having multiple ports, as you know from version 6.7, you now only need to configure your security mechanisms on only one port, which is a great simplification in here. What is more visible to the user, of course, is the new web portal look and feel, and also the improved usability. So in here we made a step towards a more modern interface. As you can see, we started improving our login screen in the web portal, and we also improved all the views in the web regarding the look and feel and also the usability. So as you can see, this is looking way more modern now, and also we improved the icons and the usability, for example the trees in here or the display of large files. This is also the same when using different configuration mechanisms in the web, which are now based on a consistent dialog component, which you can see here. And we added a lot of functionality to those dialogs, like maximizing them, minimizing them, or drag and drop them around, resize them. This is also something I will show you in some minutes in a quick live demonstration. And besides the dialogs, we also improved the table components in the web portal. So as you can see here, this also has a new look and additional functionality, like for example a pagination mechanism, which allows to improve the performance in rendering and loading tables. Tables have a filter component available, which allows you to filter your rows and search for the needed data. You can drag and drop different columns in the table. You can show and hide them, and you can of course also export the data which is displayed in the table. We also added an extended context menu to all table components. So as you can see here, this functionality is nearly the same now as in the Java GUI. Of course, it's not completely the same, but this is a step we will make from version to version, and we want to migrate the Java GUI to the web portal more and more. And another new feature which made it from the Java GUI to the web portal is the inventory view. So in the web portal, you are now able to look into your StableNet inventory to manage your devices, to add, for example, maintenances based on your inventory. You can show your device information. You can jump around different views using the context menu, and you can also start rediscoveries or delete devices. And we also made some improvements to the network configuration and change management in the web. So also in here, you're now able to deploy new jobs based on existing ones. You can start jobs, you can abort jobs, and you can check the job history. And we also did some enhancements to the deploy prepared job component, but this is also something I will show you later on. And just as another example, the improved state view. This is just another view we improved. So in here you can again see we have updated our look and feel, and we have a more flexible 3 component here on the left side with an extended context menu. And again on the right side we have our new table component showing all open alarms in the system. So I will give you a quick live demonstration on this new web portal. So as you can see, we have our new login screen in here, and we can start simply logging in. And as you can see directly, we have this new table component as the first page. And then here you can see our pagination allows us to navigate through different pages of the table. We can increase the amount of entries shown. Of course, this will get a long page if you display all open alarms in here, so keep in mind what you want to see. But of course, it's useful to show entries when filtering on important rows for you. So we can start filtering on these rows by adding the filter and typing in some keywords. For example, we can search for devices in our router lab. So let's see, we have one Juniper router in here, and this router has an open alarm on the temperature, as you can see. Can again remove this filter to see all rows, and we can also reduce the amount of displayed rows. What you can also do is select the columns you prefer. So as you can see, at the moment we show these 6 columns. We can now start adding a new ordering to these columns by, for example, moving the time at the first column and the type as the second column. And we can also add customer column and remove the description column. And as soon as we press the apply button, this table in the background gets updated. And as a last feature, the improved context menu. As you can see, this context menu is dependent on the table you are looking at. So we are currently facing the alarm table, and this is why we have features like acknowledging open alarms. And here, the new dialog component, which allows us to track this around. You can maximize dialog, you can minimize it again, and you can also resize it, depending, of course, always on the content you are looking at. It's also possible, if this is no model dialog, to open multiples at the same time. So in this case, if there is another dialog in here, we could open it and place it beside this dialog. And again, the export of our table rows. So in this toolbar of this table, we have 2 buttons to export all available rows to Excel and to export them to a CSV file. So as soon as I press this button, I will get a download, and all rows are in there. Another feature is the new inventory, which I just showed. So you can see here, these are all devices which are in my current StableNet installation, and of course I can now use the right-click menu to, for example, show device information on a specific device. You can get the health state of a device, you can see the properties, interfaces, connectivity data, and so on. Of course, if StableNet is able to discover this data. So in this case it was a non-SNMP device, we can also use an SNMP device and show this information again. You can see we have multiple measurements, and we also have some interfaces and connectivity data. You can also jump to other views, for example to our config view. Probably we have no configuration for this one, so this is not working, and also my pop-ups are blocked. So this is something you want to activate, of course. So in here we directly jump to our backup view, and you can see we only have backups for our router lab. But also this view got updated, and I will show you again the usage of the new dialog component. For example, if we select a backup, normally these backup files are very long and hard to read. What you can do is, for example, resize this or resize it in the width to show more content on the line. And of course, you can maximize it completely. In our case, we are lucky as the text is nearly only on the left side. Alright, so this is some impression from the new web portal. Let's go ahead and look into the new features of the Java GUI. Here we also did some updates on the design and also on the usability. The first thing you will probably see when opening the GUI is the new updated icon set. So as you can see, we have a complete updated icon set, which is having the same style throughout the complete GUI. And also the states were updated. So in here you can see those are not anymore connected to the icon itself, but they have a own icon. behind the measurement or device icon. You can also check our documentation for an explanation on those icons. So for each icon and for each state, we have an explanation in there. We also updated the inventory theme in the Java GUI. So you can see here, we still have our inventory tree, and we also have the device list in here. But what we changed is the display of the network topology on the right side. So instead of showing the complete network as a graphic, we now have device information directly visible when selecting a device on the left side in here. So as I click this device, I directly get information here on the right side, giving me the device health. I can also switch to open alarms and to properties and so on. But you still also got the possibility to display your network topology, but now also based on a different mechanism. So instead of showing the complete topology or the topology based on open folders on the left side, you see at first only the device you selected and a specific neighbor level range. So you can see here we have neighbor levels 2 set, and this means that we can see the direct neighbors of our selected device, which is this one. So this is the direct neighbor, and we can then see the next neighbor level, which is all neighbors of this device. So this is how we get this topology graph, and of course you can increase the neighbor level more and more to get a complete overview on your network. But of course, instead of using this functionality to watch your topology, you should use the weather map feature. I will again show you this in the Java GUI. So as you can see, this is the new inventory style. We have still our device tree, and on the right side we have this updated functionality. So as soon as I select the device in here, let's for example select this StableNet installation, you can see at first the device health itself. So this is all the measurements which correspond to this device I selected. And the second tab, you can see all open alarms. So luckily we don't have any alarms on our demo system right now. Can select this one to show an alarm only corresponding to this device. We can look into the properties of devices. We can check the interfaces. So let me again take this one. Can check the interfaces. So these are all interfaces which correspond to this device. Can check the connectivity data, physical addresses seen, module data, installed software, and so on. So everything which is also available from the previous show device information dialog, which you already know from version 6.7 and previous versions. So this is a nice simplification in the usability and in your workflow when checking device data. And of course, as the last tab in here, the topology graph. So as you can see, I selected this device, which is surrounded by this blue border, and I at first show only directed neighbors. So my neighbor level is 1. And as soon as I, oops, wrong direction. As soon as I decrease the neighbor level, additional devices will be displayed. So instead of only showing directly connected neighbors, which will be the switch here, we also show neighbors on the second level. So all neighbors of the neighbor of this device. In this case, this is everything which is connected to the switch, and we can increase this furthermore to show additional network devices and additional topology. So as you can see, we can more and more show devices in our network. Another thing we changed is the usability of maintenances. Instead of only scheduling maintenances on device basis or on measurement and monitor basis, you will now be able to schedule a maintenance also based on your open alarms table. So what you are going to do is open your alarms, right-click one specific alarm, and select the maintenance entry in the context menu. And in here you've got the same functionality as you already know from your devices and measurements. So you can schedule a new maintenance and you can schedule device maintenance. And as you click those buttons or those menu entries, you will face this maintenance schedule dialog. In here you can again maintenance connected interfaces, or you can maintenance connected devices depending on your network topology. And this is also a great simplification in the workflow and also in the usability of the maintenance systems. I already mentioned before that we did some changes to the updating process of the StableNet GUI, and the storage which is needed by the GUI. So what we changed in here is that the StableNet GUI at first is installed in the user's home directory, so all libraries which are needed by the GUI are stored there, and also the runtime environments, or more precisely Java runtime environments. And this has the advantage that we don't need administrative permissions anymore. And we can also store different GUI versions. So you can see here I have several different versions on my computer, and now if I switch around different server versions which have corresponding version to these GUI versions in here, then I do not need to update or download the GUI from the server. I can simply use the ones which are already on my system. So this is a nice feature when switching, for example, between live and testing systems. And the next feature, and probably one of the most welcome features to our customer, is the introduction of our new REST API. This REST API is based on Java API for RESTful web services, and it allows our customers to integrate StableNet and third-party products easily. So what you, for example, can do with this interface is reading out connectivity data from your StableNet installation. You can manage your devices. This means you can add new ones, you can rediscover existing ones, you can delete them, modify them. You can read out corresponding event data of devices like traps, syslogs, or action events. You can manage your users and customers. This also means adding them, modifying them, or deleting them. And you can do a lot of more stuff. I want to give you two simple examples. The first one is a simple get method of the REST. So what you can do is simply put this one in your process trace bar and navigate to it, and as a result you will get a complete list of all your devices in StableNet. So as you can see, we are using the devices list functionality, and as a result we get an XML document which lists all devices in our inventory. Another feature, for example, is the rediscovery of already existing devices in StableNet. So you can see here again we have our devices functionality, but instead of listing devices we use the rediscover command, and of course this rediscover command needs a device for rediscovery. This is added with an object identifier which is internal to StableNet. So if you want to rediscover a device, you need this object identifier, but remember, we can get this device list, and in this device list all object identifiers are listed. So this is one object identifier, this is another one, this is one. And these numbers can now be used to start our rediscover, and the result will be the result we normally get from our rediscovery job. So we can see we have one total checked IP address and one successfully discovered and updated device. you have 9 capped measurements and 12 capped monitors, 1 modified monitors. So this is what you already know from the job analyzer. Another new feature which is requested by a lot of customers is the StableNet embedded agent. And this agent allows highly distributed installations, for example in cloud monitoring scenarios or also in the Internet of Things. And there are also a lot of more use cases where you can use the embedded agent. And this agent allows to monitor IT systems of low complexity, like for example, can monitor customer with less than 5 devices like PCs, printers, and also some external services like financial ones or email services, CRM services. And you simply put this embedded agent in your network. It automatically connects to a StableNet cloud provider, and like this you can easily use StableNet as a service or software as a service. And the monitoring aim is, of course, the main monitoring aim is the cloud service level agreement. We also did some changes to our discovery process. More precisely, we replaced the network discovery, which you know from the inventory, by a new discovery wizard that is based on XML discovery jobs now. So remember, before you had a network discovery button in here. This is now called Create Discovery Job, and it allows you to create basic XML templates based on subnet discoveries or range discoveries, CSV files. So this functionality is the same as you know from the previous network discovery, but now you won't execute these discoveries directly. You will first create, or StableNet will first create a basic XML template for you and a corresponding job to that template, and you can now or afterwards use this job to discover your template to your network, and you can also adjust the basic template to your needs. We also added new device support to StableNet, including the devices listed in here. So for example, fire bridges or Fortinet firewalls. Also added Cisco Meraki cloud controller. From this one we can discover all information states with SNMP, of course. We also support Ixia incomplete, meaning full NCCM, and we also implemented the REST interface for Ixia, so this is also an advantage of the new server technology, that we can use REST to discover or manage external devices. For our telco customers, it's probably nice to hear that we also added a new protocol to our service analyzer, which is EIGRP. This information is read out from devices during the discovery, and you can then use the service analyzer to display the topology and information on your configuration in StableNet. And as a last new feature, we added new usability to the weather maps. So in here now, as you can directly see, we have analyzer chart which is showing the interface load of your topology. And these charts are displayed as soon as you hover over links in your weather maps. So if you are able to measure interfaces of your devices and you are able to discover topology, you can simply hover over such a link and StableNet will automatically display this chart in your weather maps. And this is available in the Java GUI, but it is also available in the web portal. So you can use this for dashboard quick information as well. And you can also see that we improved the icon set in weather maps as well. So StableNet is shipped now with this improved icon set, which of course you are free to use, so you can update your weather maps in style. But you also still have the possibility to add your own icons to the weather maps and to StableNet. And some new features to the NCCM part were done as well regarding the usability. So a lot of customers were using our config snippets and configuration shops together with database variables, and it was always a lot of work to see and find out which config snippets or which jobs are using which database variables, especially if you have a lot of different snippets, jobs, and a lot of variables. And as you can see now, we made a new menu. We added a new menu item entry to the context menu when clicking the config snippets. You can see here we have this use database variables. And as you click this button, you can directly see which database variables are used by a specific config snippet. This is also available for the template-based configuration jobs as well, and also for the snippet-based configuration shops. Another feature we added to our snippet-based configuration shops is that you are now allowed to use input parameters for your snippets. So what you can do is put in placeholders in your config snippets and then add a template to your snippet-based configuration shop, which is also based on XML and corresponds to the templates you know from our template-based configuration shops. And in a new step in this job wizard, you can then fill in all input parameters, and StableNet will automatically use your inputs to replace the variables in your config snippets. So what you can do is generalize your config snippets more and more to be used in policy checking jobs or in configuration jobs and so on. So we also did some enhancements to StableNet, so we are finished with the new features now. Our first enhancements correspond to the GUI and web portal. One first change is the GUI alarm indicators. We have this flashing indicator on top here in the GUI, which is flashing if you have open alarms in your StableNet installation which are not acknowledged. So as you can see, we have 42 alarms in here, and all of these are not acknowledged by now. And this is why our indicator on top here is showing a red state or an alarm state. This is also a flashing state, so it changes from green to red all the time. Now as soon as I acknowledge all my alarms, this indicator stops flashing. So this means we have no alarms in our system which are not acknowledged by now, as you can see down here. So all alarms are acknowledged now, and then this indicator stops flashing. So it's a nice indication for you that you are free of open unacknowledged alarms in your system right now. For the web portal, we disabled the HTTP access completely now, so this is also something a lot of customers were requesting. We also improved the dynamic dashboard, which was introduced in version 6.7 furthermore. So what we did is add the functionality and the flexibility you already know from the top-end dashboard, like doing time setting changes or filtering. And as the dynamic dashboard now has the same functionality plus the functionality from the dynamic reporting, we removed the top-end dashboard. So if you were using this top-end dashboard before, you should now start using the dynamic dashboard. It has the same functionality as the top-end dashboard, but as I mentioned, it also includes the functionality for dynamic reporting. And here you can see a small example also with, of course, our improvements we made to the web portal. We also did some enhancements to our analyzer and group analyzer usability in the Java GUI. So as you can see, the first thing we did is clean up the options and settings of the analyzer, group analyzer window. So down here you can see this has a nice order now, separated by chart type functionality and time settings functionality. And we also changed the display of different tabs in this analyzer view. So instead of showing all measurements which are displayed in here in the chart, we now simply have a selection box, and all measurements that are displayed are now in the drop-down available. And this is also the same for the group analyzer. As we can see, this is also cleaned up. But of course, the functionality is the same as before. So this is simply usability clean up. But what we did in the multi-chart usability is way more enhancement than before, because as you can see in here, this is a multi-chart from version 6.7, and you can see exactly nothing except for some measurement names and some legend entries and a nice title. If you open this same multi-chart in the version 7.0, you will see an updated chart which is not displaying all measurements directly now. Instead it shows a summary mode, which you can see here. So as I select multiple elements, StableNet automatically decide which mode to show. It also reduces the length of your title. So you can see here it's a multi-chart for 24 elements. And we, as I mentioned before, we also changed the display of these measurements. So instead of showing all at once, we have this drop-down box here, and in there is a list of all your measurements. And of course now you can start adding more measurements. You can remove them, you can rotate them to change the coloring, and you can change the mode. Together with the introduction of the StableNet embedded agent, we reworked the agent registration process. So a lot of improvements were done to this registration process, and this is also something which is important to customers which are using this registration process. And we also added the agent registration to the license file now. So if you are using this registration process, you should contact our sales team if you are updating to version 7.0, as you may need a new license file. And we also did the same to the agent repository. It was available in the license file all the time, but the server wasn't checking if the agent repository is used and if it is licensed. So if you are using the agent repository without having licensed it, you should now also contact our sales team, as you will need an updated license file. Otherwise your agent repository won't work anymore. And we also, of course, did some enhancements to our discovery process. One first cool feature you can use now is the encryption of passwords in your discovery, or more precisely in the CSV files you use in your discovery jobs. So instead of writing in your passwords in clear text, you can encrypt them now using the agent CLI. But this has the advantage that not everybody who is allowed to look into your CSV files or in your discovery file manager can directly see the credentials of your devices. So simply log into the CLI, use this encrypt command together with your password, and the agent will return you an encrypted string which can be placed in your CSV file. We also added auto measurements for H3C devices, for NEC and Huawei devices. We added the vendor support or discovery support for Tomra reverse vending machines and for Cisco IOS XR and WLC 5500. And we also added the NCCM support for these two devices, so you can configure and back up those now. For HP, Dell and Cisco UCS, we added hardware measurements to StableNet. And again, we did some enhancements to our network configuration and change management. A lot of these enhancements improve the productivity when using NCCM. For example, when using database variables, you will get an automatic validation now. If you use a wrong name or if you use a database variable which isn't available, you will get a message now which tells you to check again your config snippet or if your database variable is available. We also added a new mechanism to deploy jobs in the web portal. This was completely reworked and is based more on your XML templates now. So depending on the types of input fields you are using in your templates, the web or the deploy prepared job dialog in the web is now also showing the correct input fields, like for example password fields, input spinners, drop-down boxes, check boxes, and so on. So you are not only facing text input fields in the web now anymore. And we also added an enhanced support for zero-touch activation using database variables, and this is also something which I will quickly show you in live demonstration. So you already know our template-based configuration shops and our snippet-based configuration shops, and what you can do now is using these both job types is generate configurations for your devices, but you of course don't want to generate configurations for devices which are available in your network. You may also want to generate them for devices which are not in there by now. So you know these devices will come to your network in 1 week or 2 weeks, for example, but you want to generate a basic configuration right now. And what you can do now in here is set up a database variable which reads out device information from your database, and of course these devices and the information is not taken directly from these devices as they are not there. It's just virtual information, so you edit this information by hand. I have added the database variable in here which is called virtual devices, and this database variable is exactly doing this. I have simply added 2 rows to my table, including an IP address, a name for the device, and the vendor. And this data is now used to generate a configuration file. And what I do is go to my snippet-based configuration job. As you can see, I call it configuration for new Cisco routers as a simple example. And in our job modification dialog, we can navigate to the device selection. And in here you can see we have now an additional device selection option which is called database variable. And in here I can now use my specified database variable to specify the devices which should be used for the snippet-based configuration job. So remember what you did before is select devices which are already in your StableNet inventory. So you can see here these are all devices which are already available and which are measured and monitored. And I of course can create configuration for those, but they are already available. And in my case, the virtual devices, these virtual devices are not available by now. But you can see StableNet is reading out the information from the database, and it is correlating this information correctly to the different columns in this table. And what I can do now is simply add configuration snippets to this job, like an InfoSim NTP server, and export this generated config to a file. And this is something I will do now, so let's start this job. So again, you can see we export the configuration to file. We have 2 devices, which are our virtual devices, and we export this configuration to our file called %IP. And this %IP is a variable which will be replaced by StableNet with the IP address. So this one and this one. So let's start this job. And as you can see, we have 2 successful executions. And we can also go to the details, and you can see both were successfully, and this is our output. So this is our configuration file, and of course we can now use this configuration file, which is available in our Jobs menu button under Generated Config File Manager. And in here we have our two text files. So the first one, it has the same input as the second one, as we used a simple configuration snippet. So you can see here we have two configuration files now. And of course you can parameterize these config snippets again to reflect device-dependent configurations. We also did some enhancements to our reporting API. We added another servlet which allows to execute report jobs by simply calling an URL. So for example, we have this URL executing a specific report job with this job ID. So this job ID has to be taken from your StableNet installation. You can add the ID to this URL, and you can also decide to send the generated report via email. So if you specified email recipients in the job, you can decide to send this report automatically. And what you can do now is, for example, use this servlet to be executed, for example, when an alarm is risen by the agent, then the agent can automatically start executing this report job execution servlet together with alarm group notifications or alarm scripts. And the result will be, of course, a new report based on your report job with the ID 1004. And as our settings in here states, we are sending this report to all users in our job. We also made another enhancement to our IP SLA measurements. So as you know from previous version, you were able to set your own IP SLA measurements on devices using SNMP write community. But there also may be cases where you don't have a write community, but you know that there are also already existing SLA measurements available on the device. And what you can do now is let StableNet automatically discover these IP SLA measurements and set them up using simple SNMP templates. So you can go to your default properties in the Auto Measure category and activate this option, which is called Auto IP SLA Measurements via SNMP templates. And with this option checked, every device gets an IP SLA folder together with all SLA measurements which can be located on the device. This also has some disadvantages compared to the SLA measurements we set up when having a write community. So as you can see, information is not as extended like when setting it up directly. And another enhancement we did to our weather map usability is at first that we are now able to display the bandwidth or the traffic which is running over a link in our weather map. So as you can see, the width of this different links is different. This one has a small width, this one has a bigger one, and this completely depends on how much traffic is running over your link or what is the current bandwidth of your link. And StableNet is then automatically sizing these links corresponding to the measured values. You can still use the old behavior in only showing the links, but not any specific parameters to these links. But if you need something like this, you can simply activate it now for your existing weather maps. And we also did some updates to our GeoMap view. You will now be able to use the GeoMap also in Internet Explorer 9 and 10, as we did some update to our OpenStreetMap library. So as you can see, this one is looked at in Internet Explorer version 10, I think. So we are finished with our new features and enhancements now, and as a last step, I want to give you some hints on the installation and upgrade procedure of version 7.0. Of course, one first thing you should do before installing or updating StableNet is make sure that you meet all hardware requirements. So we have these hardware requirements in the slide set in here, and they are also available on our support website. And what is important, we did some changes to our installer, and if at least a minimum of hardware isn't met, you won't be able to install or upgrade StableNet anymore. So make sure that you have at least this minimum or the hardware requirements which are stated on our support website. What is also important is that our high availability infrastructure was reworked completely, and you need a complete operating system reinstallation. For this case, if you are using our high availability, you can check the new documentation on this infrastructure, which gives you a good step-by-step tutorial and a lot of technical details regarding this new approach. During the installation, if you met all these requirements, you can simply execute your installers, but especially for the GUI, you need to make sure that you are running the installers manually. So you won't be able to update your GUI automatically simply by connecting to a new version 7.0 server. You need to run the installer one time manually. This is also the same for client GUIs on Citrix or RDP servers. And also for StableNet installations using the agent registration, you may need some adaptations. Remember, for example, the license file I mentioned before, which needs an update. And this is also the same for the agent repository. I also mentioned this already. If you are using the agent repository, you may need a license file update, and it is also best practice to download an updated agent repository from our support website. After your installation was successfully, or your upgrade procedure was successfully, you should check the default properties if everything is set correctly. Also remember that we added this IP SLA measurement, so check if you want to use this or if you don't want to use this. You should also check your XML discovery file for deprecated syntax. Also in here we have new updated XML discovery with better descriptions of all available elements and attributes, and also extended examples. And you should also check your customer or user right configuration as well as the web portal menu display settings, as we made some changes especially in the web portal regarding the inventory view. So this was it from my side. Again, thank you for watching and listening to our webinar, and I give back to Dietmar.
Thank you very much, Mark, for that presentation and live demo. Well done. During your presentation, we were able to answer quite a number of questions, as we have a pretty large crowd attending the session today. So I had a couple of our support guys in the background answering questions throughout the presentation. One of the main questions, or one of the questions that we heard a lot of times, is about the presentation slides for this webinar. Answered that publicly, but just going to repeat myself in here as well. So yes, those slides will be available. I posted the URL you should be checking probably tomorrow around this time, so we'll post them on our website. Be available for download then. Also, of course, we offer detailed web sessions on any other StableNet related subject. In case you have a need for that, just contact us. We're happy to help. answering all your questions. The version 7.0 is available for download. If you are not yet a customer and would like to have a trial license, please feel free to request that license over the website. All customers who have access to our support web can, of course, download version 7.0 from there. And the slide Mark brought up is maybe another hint to all the resources and further information we have available on the website. And if you would like to advance one more slide, Mark, please, then this is the main page of our website, and then in the middle, the middle tile that is marked now, this is the one that brings you to the release page. This is where you can find all the information about the release, probably tomorrow this time. So I wanted to thank everyone for joining our session today. As I've mentioned earlier, a recording of this webinar will be made available to all of you tomorrow via email. And again, if you have any other questions, feel free to contact either Mark, myself, or any other member of the staff with InfoSim. We will keep this session open for a few more minutes just in case anyone from our audience decides to type in another question. We'll take care of that as well. And by the way, when leaving this webinar, you will be presented with a short questionnaire that helps us to improve our webinars and also to pick the right topics for future webinars. As most of you hopefully know, we offer global webinar days every month, so please do us a favor, take a minute and answer those questions. Other than that, I guess that's all from us today. Mark, any final thoughts, any final words?
No.
All right, that was pretty short and sweet. Okay, well, again, thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye.
Thanks for joining. Goodbye, everybody.